Hello, my name is Jacqueline Brown. I did my assignment on Canyon State Academy. It's a school out in Queen Creek, Arizona. It's been around for over 30 years. I originally found it online. I Googled a place and I found it, and I ended up getting a phone number of one of the directors out there for the program. So I talked to him on the phone for about 30 minutes and just explained the entire process and what they do. So it was I got a lot of good information from it. So basically how it's funded is it's funded a few different ways. Since the school is, a lot of times it's like, the students or the kids there have to go. So it's a requirement through the courts. So a lot of times probation and parole are the ones who end up paying for it out of their budget or the courts. He also said that, sometimes the families will pay, but that's rarely the case since usually they come from like broken homes and stuff like that. And also they do get donations, so that's another cool thing. The reason why I really like this place was because they don't just do like just schooling and stuff like that. They do counseling. They have sports programs, so football, and I think sports are a really good way to get kids off the street, get their mind just away from like negative environments and stuff like that. So I really like that, and they do have like rehabilitation, and they have a lot of different things within this academy. So some positive things about it: food, shelter, clothing, that's all provided. So that's a really good thing. And like I said, it gets them away from this negative environment at home. They don't want to be at the home. A lot of times there's like drugs, alcohol, violence, abuse. So they just stop, wanting to go home. So they turn to the streets, and then from there it's just a crime process. So one of the downfalls, though, is it is $145 to $200 per day per child. So can be very expensive to keep these kids there, and so if the state is paying for that, that can eventually become costly. He did say when I talked to him on the phone that juveniles that go there, they obviously have to be under the age of 18. If they get there when they're 17, they can still stay for a little bit before their 19th birthday. They have to leave. Usually, he says around 8 months is how long it takes. So that's usually like the length, 8 months to a year. He says everyone's different, so it can be. Some people need it longer than others. So, yeah, and so then some more negative things is if a lot of times the kids will fail only because of they don't have any support from home. So once they go back home, it's basically just a recycle of their past. So that's the downfall once they leave, because they can't stay there forever. So it's unfortunate that once they get back to the neighborhoods, and then they don't have anyone at home to help them. So that's the case with a lot of these type of programs. Once they get out, it's like another back into the cycle. So yeah, and then he actually told me there's 3 steps to their program. So initially it's to learn about external problems and address them, and teach them, guide them, and then how they do it is they use evidence-based practices, so criminogenic factors. They try to see if it's a criminogenic factor or a protective factor. Criminogenic factors, is like parents drinking, things like that. So they just try to find, kind of the source of the problem and then address it from there. They use therapeutic goals, so achievement-based goals. So I thought that was actually really interesting because, like, they give them certain goals to reach, and that's how they, basically do their practices. And I think that's a good thing because when you have a goal to work towards, I think it's a lot. You're more driven to do that. So they use achievement-based goals. So I thought that was a really interesting thing as well. So I did go look at the peer review articles, and so on the juvenile life without parole, one quote I found on there was, Life experiences of the approximately 2,500 people serving juvenile life sentences vary, but they often are marked with very difficult upbringing, with frequent exposure to violence where the victims were often victims and abuse themselves. Obviously, I think that's the source, and that's the problem with these homes that they come from, these broken homes. And then that luckily we have programs like Canyon State Academy that takes them in, and just basically like can give them that just a place to like get away from that and meet other kids that come from homes like that, but they don't, they're trying to find a way out. So I thought that was really interesting. And also, into ties with being victims and abused themselves, kind of, similar to something that I've learned about in a lot of my classes and in our book as well, which is the social bonds theory. This is by Travis Hershey. Basically, the social bonds theory is just like social structures, and so just basically it argues that individuals have a strong, lasting attachment to traditional society and are less likely to drift away than a person who has a weak or shallow bond. So, for example, kids that are in programs, so like after-school programs, church groups, things like that, it basically just gets their minds away from just that environment. And I think that's because if they don't have the time to go out in the streets and do these type of things, then I think that that can help them. So I thought that really tied into the social bonds theory, really tied into this. And then also with his theory, it also says the idea basically stated that low self-control is associated with higher levels of normality and criminality, irrespective of the strength or weaknesses of one's social bonds. So, and I think a lot of these juveniles don't have, these close bonds with their parents, and they're lacking that. And I think, that's something that, juveniles need. And I think these programs like, there's tons, but like Canyon State Academy can give them that relationship. There's counselors, there's teachers, there's just like a variety of different, sources there for them. So I really like that. And, so another article that online was reducing the juvenile recidivism through specialized reentry services, a second chance at ACT project. So as I read through that one, it said three significant changes that have broad implications for improving reentry services. So partnerships are growing between public and private organizations to work, more closely in reentry efforts, which I think are it's a huge thing is reentry, because if these individuals are just reentering into the system, then it's just a never-ending cycle of of just crime and criminal behavior. So I think that's important. And then it also says reentry programs are becoming more comprehensive, including the use of assessment tools, case management, mentoring services, which is just like what they do at this school, which is counseling, like I said, like just a variety of different things. They have whatever this child needs. It's just there to address the needs. And then also it says a cultural shift in thinking about reentry services is happening, with a movement away from enforcement and authority to one's peer and rehabilitation, or support and rehabilitation. So I think what they're trying to say by that is kind of move it more like trying to get these individuals kind of away from the system and the whole being behind bars and in the environment, and get them to a healthy environment where they can actually learn and rehabilitate, like I said, make friends, just do normal kid things that they should be able to do. And I think that's what this program allows, and I think that's a good thing. So that was another thing that I found very interesting, was that article. He also did mention a certain quote that kind of what their program's about, and it's called Cleaned Up. And that's basically their ideal goal is to get these juveniles cleaned up, educate them on right and wrong, which they might have never even had someone do that. So I liked his Cleaned Up, which was really interesting to me as well. So they have lastly, another thing that they mentioned was how long they need. So a restrictive place, so how long they're, in the home. And he says a lot of times the homes that they go back to are just super violent. They're, like I said, abusive. And so the alternative, is a relative's home. And if they can find a healthy relative that will take them in, then, that's where they'll go. But he says a lot of times it's almost impossible to even be able to control where they go, because there's no regulations really on the homes and stuff like that. So found that really unfortunate. And yeah, so they did have. I'm just trying to find like the last few things, but I think overall, the goal for this program, as I've read into it and talked to people about this academy, is that it's just there to get kids off the streets and doing healthy things like sports and just things like that. And like I said, like I played sports my whole life, and I think that having that outlook, like that, different direction, sports is a great way to get your mind off what's going on in your life, and I think that's what a lot of students and kids and everyone needs. So I think it's really awesome that they have a football program and soccer program and like just stuff like that. So and then they get rewards. If they do good, it's just rewarding for them. They don't ever have that reward feeling. So yeah, and so that's basically the end of my presentation. And yeah, thanks.